Hosted by Ed Steer and Dan Bolter, Life in Digital explores the ever-changing media landscape with today's industry leaders.
Hi, welcome to Life in Digital at Sphere. I'm Marnie and I sit on the commercial team, and today I'm with Michael Djan, who is the Managing Director at Feenix Talent. So Michael, thank you so much for coming in. How are you?
Do you know what? I'm great. It's sunny, loving life, all good.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in as well, because I know that you and I have really only known each other for about a year now, but I thought it'd be amazing just to start on how you've managed to get to your new position at Feenix Talent.
Gosh, okay. Well, I kind of fell into the industry. So, 2006, what was that? It was 20 years ago, wasn't it? I actually really wanted to work in TV. And when I was at university, I did, advertising and TV. I did some internships at Publicis at the time, and that was something called TVYP, which essentially was like for young individuals who wanted to work in the television industry. But when I left university, it was really difficult to kind of get into both of those spaces. And so I was at a party, and I was at a party and I met this incredible lady, and she was like, "What about media?" And I was like, "What's that?" And then she was like, "Well, it's this, that, and the other." And she was like, I can help you if you want to get into that. And I was like, okay. So fast forward, I ended up working at Z, which does no longer exist, but it was part of Zenith Optimedia, which was digital buying arm. And I was a graduate planner there, worked on Capital One. I was there for just under a year and then moved to Manor Gottlieb OMD, where I was a planner and a buyer. And then I moved to Argentina randomly, as you do.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
Highly recommend. So I was there for a year, came back, and then I had a really, really good friend, we're still really, really good friends, who said to me, "Why don't you try working at Facebook?" And I was like, "I'm not really sure." I'm not sure.
And what year was this again?
2010.
Okay, right.
So it's really early.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'll go for the interviews and we'll see what happens. Yeah. And as I started going through the round, I was like, I really want this job. So I was there. So that was kind of a rocket ship. I was there for 6 years. The first 3 years was in the sales team. Wow. The final 3 years was in the partnerships team, where I was working across, big media partnership rights holders, celebrity talent, etc. Just from a sort of organic synergy partnership perspective. And that kind of shifted into product partnerships. And then when the company bought Instagram, that was kind of, I sort of did that as well across the EMEA region. I then moved over to UTA to be the sort of lead for the UK on a digital perspective. So UTA is a massive Hollywood talent agency, essentially. So I work with a lot of Hollywood actors and some musicians in the UK and chefs, etc. Doing sort of strategy work, growth work for them, personal branding work, etc. Then I ran my own company for 2 years.
Love it.
Then COVID happened. And then in 2020, I had a short stint at a company which was a COVID job. And then TikTok came calling.
Amazing.
So I was there. I was the first head of celebrity partnerships there. And I was there for almost 3 years. And then I had a period, which we'll get into, in 2023. And then I met some who they actually were partners of mine, and when I was at TikTok, and it was I really liked them at the time, and thought, okay, it'd be great to kind of like explore what this could look like for me, moving into the gaming space, which I had no experience in. Had experience in across entertainment, sports, lifestyle, public figures, but that's I guess the only missing bit. But as the conversation sort of developed and. As actually during last year, 2020, three, the zeitgeist really was, about youth culture and gaming and how to get into it, etc. So I just thought I couldn't really miss this opportunity to kind of explore this, and so then that's what happened.
Amazing. And the fact that you've worked at both Meta and TikTok in your career is amazing, because obviously sitting on the commercial team Sphere, I speak to so many candidates and their end goal is, I want to work at TikTok, I want to work at Snap, Meta. So what do you think helped you secure roles in these kind of businesses?
I mean, look, I was there at a time when things were very, very different, right? So, 2010, it was really early doors. I mean, my conversations with brands were talking about like the fact that people's names will be more and more on the internet, and social will be the next kind of way that people communicate, and getting so much pushback, right? So I think like the skill set then was really about like tenacity and wanting to kind of be some part of something that was growing. And having that kind of entrepreneurial kind of like, I guess, perspective on work. And similarly with TikTok as well, actually. I mean, 2020, it was still considered to be the underdog, very much the underdog. Right?
Yeah.
And so people didn't understand it, just thought it was for like 15-year-olds. Right?
I mean, it took me a while to get it, but now here I am scrolling for 2 hours a day.
Well, this is the thing, and so, again, I think at that point anyway, I think my experience working with, A-list celebrities and media companies and exec public figures was sort of a perfect fit for the direction of where the company wanted to go, and, to kind of build a team and to utilize my knowledge and what I learned from the Instagram and Facebook days. And bring it to TikTok, I think was the thing that turned it for myself. Yeah.
Amazing. And would you have any advice to anyone that's now starting their career and wants to have an opportunity at a Meta or a TikTok?
I mean, I guess just be passionate about what you want to be doing. Like, what's your perspective and point of view? I think like a lot of these companies now, people like speak to, friends there, etc. It's not a why Instagram anymore. Like, you have to be on these platforms, right?
Yeah.
Facebook or Instagram, TikTok, etc. So I think it's about like how do you, depending on what role you're going for, right?
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, from my perspective, it's about how do you, if you're going to come in somewhere, what impact are you going to have? How can you sort of change the direction from to kind of up level the business in some way.
Yeah.
And so if you can kind of show that and demonstrate that, then I'm sure there's opportunities for people to move into roles that suit them.
But no, that's amazing. So from starting your career, agency side as a planner to now MD at Feenix Talent is fantastic. And I speak to a lot of candidates every single day. Money is important to them, progression is super important to them. But what we're finding a lot now is actually leadership. Who their managers are going to be, the team around them. So being in now a leadership position, what does that mean to you?
Leadership's really interesting, right? Because I think there are many different types of leaders. There are many different sort of, I guess, ingredients that go into like what a great leader would be, and in different functions as well. And I've been really fortunate in my career to be up close to some really incredible ones. I will name drop Carolyn Everson from Facebook, actually.
Amazing, go on, Karen.
Who, she was at the time the global VP of sales. And what I really liked about her, she moved to London for 6 months when there was a big change going on in the London office. And I was up close to her in a lot of meetings, and she was just extremely down to earth, really, really, of course, smart, razor sharp, but very to the point and relatable.
Okay.
And so we always knew where you were with her and what the direction was. And she used to excite clients a lot. And I just remember being, one of my clients at the time at Facebook was American Express, and we had this, it was the first actual financial services organisation to, there's something called a publishing garage, the garage in the US accent, where essentially people within the brand who were significant within the marketing to come in and figure out how we use Facebook. And so they were the first financial service brands to come and do that. And so she kind of started off the meeting, and I remember that's the first time I was really close to her, hearing how she delivered the narrative and etc. And she just got these people really excited, and it was really inspiring. And so I think for me, leadership is about kind of knowing who you are, being able to sort of stand alone and stand together at the same time, because people are not necessarily going to agree with you, but if you have a point of view in a direction, and you can back that up, then I think it's about walking the talk as well, and just showing what your vision is and kind of moving forward with it. And I think that listening piece is really important too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And would you say that she has influenced your leadership style?
I think definitely, for sure. there is a phrase which I love, and it goes, people are hard to hate close up, which is a bit of a strong sentence. But what I take from that is that, if you're able to kind of be yourself and kind of be clear and transparent as much as possible, then, decisions that you make that people don't necessarily agree with, they can understand where you're coming from. And so it's kind of removing, I guess, the distance between yourself and others. Because I've seen it the other way as well, when people try to be kind of icy and and very sort of dictatorial. And I think in this new age, especially with young people, it's like, that's not gonna fly. I mean, things that were happening when I was sort of in my early 20s, mid 20s, etc., early 30s even, don't fly now. This young generation just like not acceptable. So it's really,
they're brave.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah,
they're brave, but that's fantastic. I mean, I'm late 20s, so I feel like I can understand both sides. But no, that's really good to hear that you have had an influence. I mean, without name dropping, has anyone de-influenced you? Is that the phrase we use now? De-influenced?
I think leaders who, I guess, don't demonstrate this sense of, you hire a team, you should trust the team to get on and do the job that you want them to do. You should give the vision, give the direction, and help them be their best self, right? From a career and working perspective, and provide inspiration where possible. And so I think that, from my perspective, those are some of the ingredients I talked about before, which I think make great leaders. And I think the ones who, I guess, don't connect to that, maybe who are a bit kind of hands-on, etc. I think, again, in this day and age, in this era of sort of freedom, self-expression, and kind of doing things in a way that kind of is comfortable to yourself, and everyone's got different kind of skill sets, etc. Like, I think it's difficult to kind of to deliver yourself in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting that we got to that topic as well, with the younger generation and the Gen Zs. Are we still in Gen Z, or is there another one coming through?
Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha?
Yeah.
Right, what age is Gen Alpha?
The Gen Alphas are probably about 14, 15 now,
right,
the oldest ones.
Right, okay. Because I'm
2008, I believe. 2008, 2009.
Okay, I believe I'm a millennial.
Oh.
I think.
I don't know. I think you're Gen Z, actually.
I don't feel Gen Z. I don't feel Gen Z at all. But something that's coming across in market a lot is obviously youth culture and crossover culture.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you within the gaming industry and at Feenix?
Well, do you know what? When I was at TikTok, a lot of the conversation was about, remixing culture, right? That was one of the narratives, about, getting on TikTok. It was, you would see, rappers, and fashion, come together. And, but not in the traditional ways you would normally see, but in different and cool ways, where you would see money experts with musicians or sports, etc. And that was all kind of manifested through the trends on the platform. And I think if you look at kind of the industry broadly from a entertainment, sports perspective, youth culture perspective, it's no longer in these silos, right? So if you think about the Super Bowl, which has been going on for years, the show's actually more talked about than the actual sport itself, right?
I don't watch the game.
Right.
Do you watch the game?
No. I haven't watched the show for years, multiple ways. But you see what I mean? It's this idea we're bringing together, so in that regard, there's sports and music, but around a moment. And, you'll start to see that more and more, I believe, I feel. And I think gaming, because of the way and place that it is at the moment, as becoming much more mainstream, you're starting to see celebrity talent and creators specifically sort of start to amplify and talk about their gaming expertise alongside kind of what they do day to day. Footballers have been doing it for a while. A lot of footballers are playing AFC and kind of other games like that, and you would see that on Instagram, etc. But it's never historically kind of been sort of commercialized or monetized. And that's one of the things that was quite interesting to me about Feenix Talent. It was how do we figure out how to, take what is currently the zeitgeist, right? Like gaming culture, youth culture, and figure out how to work with individuals who are in both spaces or 3 or 4 spaces, and find a route for them to commercialize that area. And that's been kind of really interesting. So I think we'll see more and more of it. I think with the younger generation, the Gen Alphas and the Gen Zs, you know, it's like, what does good look like? What does fun feel like? And so a lot of it's coming through gaming. They want to be able to kind of experience things not in a one-dimensional lens. It's like, you know, I want Burberry inside my Roblox and doing interesting things.
That's crazy.
I want, you know, there was a Lamborghini kind of Roblox experience that got launched not long ago, which is incredible, which you would never really think, right? You just think it was a really young age group, but the idea was really start to sort of bring the brand closer into, you know, audiences who can start to understand and discover brands through these newer platforms, right? So
fantastic. And then I suppose that leads me to, what do brands then expect from you? Like, what are they hoping for with these partnerships?
I think so. You know, when we talk to brands, it's really about the first thing is audience, right? So we know that if, you know, a period ago, reaching a youth demographic, it was Snapchat, Instagram, like that's it. That's what you would do. TikTok, of course, right? And now to reach that, and now that audience has kind of moved to this gaming kind of space. So the way that I look at it is gaming is the new social, it's the new youth culture, right? So if we think about the tracking of like radio and then press and then TV and then digital and then mobile. I mean, you're probably too young, but there was a whole thing about the year of the mobile for like a decade. Maybe it was the year of the mobile.
I didn't have a Motorola Razr.
There you go. So digital to mobile to then, you know, creators, TikTokers, and now it's gaming. That's the place where the youth audience are. So for brands who think, okay, so how do we reach these people? They just want eyeballs, right? So, and if there's a specific demographic they want in that age group, then you know, they have to have some sort of gaming strategy. What that looks like, how it's delivered, that's up to how it is delivered, that's up for debate. And then many different kind of types of delivery points, but we'll start to see more and more that, you know, gaming becoming part of, you know, mainstream plans, right? Particularly if you want to reach that audience, that's where they are in this world.
And is that where your studios come into play as well at Feenix?
Yeah, so Feenix Group has a Feenix Studio, which is an in-house development studio. So our biggest flagship project that you probably know about or may know about is Paddington Bear 3, where we work with Canal Plus to launch a version of Paddington Bear 3 into the Roblox experience, and that was in November last year.
Wow.
And then it was kind of relaunched again, so to speak, earlier this year when the North American when the North American film came out. So we have a head of studio there and developers who kind of create experiences. So that's that. Then we've got Feenix Talent, obviously, and MD on. So we work with professional gamers, so gamers who do it for a living and get paid and win prize money, etc. We work with content creators who game, so the ones who, are just sort of gaming, doing general content creation, but it's from a gaming lens. Yeah. And then we work with celebrity sports stars and entertainment stars who game. So we work specifically just on the gaming, any sports element really, and we figure out how to commercialize that aspect of their audiences and also help them to grow that area if they want to.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it wouldn't be a podcast without mentioning AI.
Yeah.
We have to do it.
Yeah. No.
So, what kind of benefits can you see AI bringing to you, or are there any challenges in your market?
I think, look, AI is in a really interesting place at the moment. I think, people are still trying to figure out what it does actually mean to them and kind of how it will affect their business, etc. I mean, there are a few internal projects going on at the moment I can't talk about publicly. But we will be using the technology to essentially help us in the way that we, navigate this new youth culture space. Let's call it like that. I love the technology. I think it's helpful. I think it's additive. I think it helps people to be more creative. Actually, so it leaves the kind of rudimental sort of day-to-day things, you can do them much more quickly using AI technology. And I think that as a whole, what we'll start to see, and this is just my view, is many more people at sort of the creative end of sales or partnerships, and putting things together, right, in a really interesting way, because the delivery of some of these things, whether it's just sort of like figuring out pricing, or whether it's putting together or images or videos, etc. The AI will be able to do that, right? And technologies will come in to kind of help to figure those things out. And so the benefit is broader thinking, stuff that it just leaves more brain space essentially for the people who want to start to create things that are bigger, more exciting, etc.
Okay, so not many challenges then in your market, you think?
There are loads of challenges. There are loads of challenges. There's always challenges.
I know.
Yeah. I think with every single new or kind of growing area, you have to break through the gatekeepers. Like going back to the Facebook days, it was. I remember being in a meeting and someone was like, nobody's putting their name on the internet. That's ridiculous. Right? This social thing, it's for kids. Like, it would be a fad. Okay, where are we now? And then, similarly at TikTok, no, it's for 15-year-olds. No one's going. No, it's just for kids. So you always have that, and it breaks. You have to kind of break through that and find the people with kind of the right mindset and frequency is used to understand what where society is, where people are, where youth culture is, kind of where the audience is going. And if you're those brave kind of individuals, be like, let's do this.
Yeah.
And when it's executed well, then, people follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Just from speaking to you about this as well, I'm just so happy that you found a role that you're happy in, because you seem so passionate when you talk about this market as well. But obviously, when we met last year, I actually think it was around this time last year.
No,
or maybe just a bit before.
Yeah.
Maybe like a January time.
Something like
potentially.
that. Yeah, something like that.
But obviously the journey to being the MD at Feenix Talent wasn't easy. Yeah. I know when we met for breakfast, it was only a couple of weeks ago well. We were discussing that redundancy period and how much of a taboo it is as well, kind of in our market.
Absolutely. I mean, so that's 2022 to 2023 period. A lot of people within the tech, marketing, sales were just getting made redundant, as I'm sure you know, right? And I think one of the things about redundancies is that a lot of people there's a lot of shame around it. And I think that's largely because people don't understand sometimes what the background is and why things are happening, right? So, for stuff, depending on kind of the way that your brain works, or and kind of the way that you interpret things, and your relationship with work. Yeah. Some people take it very personally. Yeah. But I think it's about them. I've spoken to so many people who, their whole sense of worth and identity has been locked up into work, which, I think needs to be looked at, right? No, but, I think we all go through phases where we enjoy things, we love things. And when it's taken away, particularly if you love something, you think to yourself, gosh, what did I do? And all of these things come up. Yeah. And I think because it isn't widely spoken about as well, people internalize stuff. Yeah. And I think that's really dangerous, actually. There is as I'm sure we all know, there's a lot of sort of mental wellness kind of conversation at the moment, right? And there has been for a while, broadly speaking. But, I think mental wellness at work is a real thing as well, particularly when people are, unfortunately taken out of things. And, there are some people, particularly sort of in the old tech companies, that I know, not just the ones I've worked at, but other ones I've got friends in, let's say the FANGs, who've been there sort of 10 and 15 years, and then, that's it. Yeah. And that is for some people, that's been a quarter of their lives. Yeah. Right? They've been somewhere, one day, they're not. Next day not. And so what does that do to the psyche? What does that do to the emotional wellness of yourself? What do you do next? And kudos to Sphere. I remember that I was introduced to this group, the CEO. They created this WhatsApp group where anybody who's made redundant could sort of like join the group and sort of say what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And there was himself in the group and others within the company who was sort of like trawling through the messages. I mean, great business model for you guys, but also I just think that what that did for me, I just looked at that and just thought, you know what, this is actually really human.
Yeah.
And really kind of, it just made me sit up and think, do you know what, like with all the darkness, like there is a lot of light, people do want to help. Yeah, I mean, I think it just needs to be talked about more.
Exactly, and it's really interesting you said that, because I have so many candidates that don't speak to their partners about it, they don't speak to their friends about it, and as you mentioned, it's because they take it so personally. They don't realise that your role might just not have been needed anymore. It's not that it was your performance.
Exactly.
Sometimes the business isn't making enough money.
Exactly.
It's not you.
Yeah.
And so many people needed to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. You said that we need to kind of remove this taboo and start talking about it.
Yeah, and just understand that, you know, I think, you know, gone are the days, you know, in the early days, well, in you know, 50s, 60s, 70s, people would stay in a job for a very, very long time, right?
Oh yeah,
right?
50 years,
50
that's
years,
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You know, that's not happening now, right? People are staying in jobs 2 years, 3 years, they're moving on, right? And, you know, I think you have to be, it's not the norm actually to be staying in jobs sort of 10, 15 years anymore, particularly within digital space, because things change really quickly. So this kind of, I guess, like sense of, okay, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to be here, put all my heart into it, etc. And then when that kind of just goes, I think causes a lot of people pain, right? Because as you said, you know, businesses change so quickly. So again, look at a number and be like, you know what, we can cut, can merge, etc.
Yeah.
Gone, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But so you made it out. You've got an amazing role as well. We're building something. So have you got any advice to anyone that might be going through redundancy right now and actually has no one to speak to?
You know, I think, first of all, try to speak to someone. I think with things that feel shameful, what brings light to them is if you share it, because shame can't survive if you share.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, if you share the information, right? And so I think with a lot of people, it's like, well, you know, because if you've worked with people, or if you've got friends in the industry, or kind of friends who are outside the industry, just sharing with someone saying this is going on will help to kind of take the sting out of that for individuals. You know, I remember speaking, personal story, I won't say his name, but I remember speaking to a friend of mine who was going through something in the States, and he was just so transparent, open. Like, he was talking about the fact that they're having to make really hard decisions about remortgages, and, you know, he's like 6 kids, and, you know, it was really, but the way that he talked about it, it kind of, it kind of opened a lot of light for me. A lot of kind of like, oh wow, okay, like people are going through some serious stuff here, and everyone's situation is different.
Yeah.
But actually, like, just hearing that, it was like, wow, you know, okay, like, let's keep going, kind of thing. So I would say, if you can speak to someone, try to do that. Even if, like, you're speaking to a recruiter, like, some women will talk to, even if they want to share that, do they?
Yeah, no.
You know.
And they just say, oh, it didn't work out for me.
Yeah.
And they don't actually tell me that they were made redundant.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that would just desensitise and take a lot of shame away from kind of the perceived inconvenience and shame from it, really, yeah.
Yeah. And actually, you know, as a hiring manager, if you're interviewing candidates that have maybe been through a redundancy, how would you want them to word it? Because again, these candidates sometimes don't bring this up during interviews.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm all about transparency and directness, and I think that, like, you know, I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame when people don't feel they can do that, and I think that's for various reasons, history, etc. Getting up again after you've fallen is actually much more valuable than someone who hasn't had any knocks, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I think, particularly in our business, where there is so much turmoil and there is a lot of there are a lot of changes and what's coming next, etc. You've got to kind of pivot quite quickly. And so I actually see it as a bit of a benefit, to be fair, to be like, you know, you had some time out, like this happened, that wasn't great. What did you learn? How can you bring that into the next experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, amazing. Well, there we go. We have advice from Michael Djan. But we've covered quite a few topics, and I have two questions to ask you before we wrap this up.
Yes.
Just to end it on a fun note. So first of all, like what can we expect to see from Feenix Group and then Feenix Talent from this year?
Yeah, I think, so we did a lot of work last year sort of launching Feenix Talent, a bit of the business. This year, you can expect to see increased talent to our roster doing really interesting things with brands and also kind of experiences as well within the UGC platform. So stay tuned for those sorts of things. And I think also, things being much more kind of known in the market, and that will be due to the work that we'll be delivering and stay tuned.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
I will absolutely be staying tuned. And then being in the entertainment space, you've worked with artists. We had the Brits that was on Saturday.
We did, yeah. Yes, we did.
So, my question to you would be, can you name me 3 songs that would represent your career, kind of from the start, the middle to now?
Okay.
What would they be?
Okay.
Try and go with songs I might know.
Okay. Okay, let me think. So let me break it up to when I was 21 to 28, right?
Okay.
That kind of first period, and then
so that's agency.
So that's kind of, that covers initial sort of Zenith Z OMD kind of phase up until sort of the changes.
Okay.
So up until when I moved to roles in Facebook, so the partnerships role, right?
Okay.
And then from that period, I would say to my mid-30s, which was kind of UTA, partnerships at Facebook, etc. And then I would say like now is like the third bit.
Okay.
So the first bit, I would actually say Natalie Imbruglia's Torn.
Do I know this one?
Do you not know who Natalie Imbruglia is?
No.
Oh my gosh, okay.
I'm not going to make you sing.
It's fine, it's fine. Have a listen. God, yeah, that's so just definitely Jen says so for those who know, they know. And the reason why I chose that song for that period, because, when you're sort of in your early 20s and, I feel like when you're in the working world, when you find something you're passionate and you really love, you put everything into it.
Okay.
But there are a lot of kind of hard knocks, right? A lot of disappointments, a lot of kind of, it can be quite traumatic at times if I look back at some of the things that kind of happened, particularly at that time.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And so, for me, that song represents something that you kind of really love, but some things just don't really work out, and you're heartbroken, and you try to get back up. So that's that period. The second period, I would say Destiny's Child Survivor.
Oh my god!
Because it was. I was just like...
That one's brilliant.
Right, it's survival, right? And
no explanation needed.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I think right now, where I am right now, I would say Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield.
Okay, cool. 2 out of 3.
Yeah, 2 out of 3. And for me, it's because, we're in this space of gaming. I'm in the space of gaming and youth culture. Like, I think things are really merging together. So, entertainment, sport, lifestyle, game, what does that look like with the AI as well? How are people going to be connecting with the next generation in a really seamless way that delivers the ROI for brands or rights holders, etc. And also I'm growing as a person, right?
Yeah.
Like I have different expectations as well, and things I want to achieve. And so I'm much more kind of open to the idea of what can happen, rather than I think when I was younger it was like it needs to be X, Y, and Z. And I think that's just a learning curve.
Yeah.
Because actually the universe does actually route you to places where you sometimes don't even imagine.
Well, of course. Like I can't imagine you at 20 even thought of a role like this, what you're doing now?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, I mean, even the way that I pivoted from the sales team of Facebook to the partnerships. I mean, I didn't know any celebrities. Like, let's be really clear. And you know, that was a chance meeting with a really good friend of mine actually at the time. He said, you should meet this person, like at a drinks thing, like upstairs. And this person started the team, and I was the second hire up to North America into that team.
Right.
And I had to interview 4 times internally. But what I didn't know, celebrities or media partners, what I did really understand was the platform very, very well.
Yeah.
And that was my selling point to go in, and that was the transition.
There we go. So, amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
And that was fun. I think, and every time I hear Destiny's Child Survivor, I want to in your early days, pushing through. But no, thank you so much for coming on, and obviously I look forward to working with you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you. It's been like a real pleasure to get to know you over this time as well. So,
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Life in Digital. If you want to know more about our guests or any of the topics that we covered today, you can find out more in our show notes and on our website.